Every so often, games are announced that create excitement and anticipation and mostly live up to the hype. But while some are successful, others are just terribly disappointing. So this video is going to cover games that had great potential but were just executed poorly. So this is games that could have been great but weren't. The first game is one of the more recent releases in this list, which is Lord of the Rings Gollum, which is about, you guessed it, Lord of the Rings Gollum. This game has a great story and graphics to back it up, which is what I would say if the game was actually good. But in this case, you play as a methed up version of Dobby and traverse through the prisons of Barad-dûr and try to escape to see a limited amount of Middle-earth. I'm going to be basing the game though off of the prisons of Barad-dûr, as most players don't make it out, as you would still have to be playing the game after the first mission to do so. Firstly, the gameplay is actually very buggy, yet the combat is surprisingly really good. Yeet. You get to experience what it feels like to be a prison's bottom bitch due to the abuse from those running the prison.
Why don't you find some place to go die?
Yes, precious.
And even the prisoners, which would rather seek death, still manage to find the power to verbally assault Gollum whenever he walks by.
What is that thing? Not a dwarf, not a goblin, too ugly for either of them.
Which really is the only slight moment of enjoyment you feel throughout the whole game. The missions though are the highlight of this release, consisting of an outer-worldly experience of hiding, then going to sleep, creepily stalking people, then going to sleep, stealing from dead bodies, then going to sleep, and finally dying a lot.
Right.
The graphics are like something straight out of the films. Looking at the side-to-side comparison, it's almost impossible to spot the difference.
I'm gay.
All jokes aside, this game could have been really special. The Lord of the Rings franchise has so much quality content that could have been included into the game, but instead the developers chose to portray possibly the most boring time of Gollum's existence, making the game just really unfun. An example of a game that did this right was Hogwarts Legacy. It let the player see all parts of the Harry Potter world, and although being set 100 years before the Harry Potter story, it still created a fun and engaging storyline as it maintained similarities and gave away hints to the time period shown throughout the films. The Gollum game was just really a missed opportunity, as we were still yet to see an updated and amazing Lord of the Rings game. It just seemed like the process was rushed and the content wasn't thought out, and the fan response clearly shows that. Next up is Marvel Avengers. This game was kind of already set up for failure if you have any knowledge of what die-hard Marvel fans are like. Apart from the sweaty 40-year-olds in their parents' attics, this game was still extremely underwhelming for even the average fan. The plot follows inhumane teenager Kamala Khan, yes, the main character is someone we don't know anything about, who gains superpowers during A-Day, a celebratory day for the Avengers which ends in tragedy following a terrorist attack. Blamed for the disaster, the Avengers disband and allow Science Corporation AIM to take their place. 5 years later, when AIM threatens to eliminate all inhumane individuals, Kamala embarks on a quest to reassemble the Avengers to combat this new enemy. This storyline just didn't seem as enticing or as exciting as the movies, as you're playing as a complete nobody, lacking any nostalgia, alongside the Avengers who look like they had been drawn from memory. They also decided to implement their own Fortnite item shop, where players have to pay for new cosmetics, which popularly pisses people off. With Avengers literally being the biggest film franchise ever, the game had a lot to live up to, and well, it just didn't. Again, like Gollum, this is another example of where developers choose to make a game based around something nobody cares about, which in turn resulted in the game's failure. Next up is Cyberpunk 2077. It wouldn't be a failed games list without Cyberpunk, as it was one of the biggest gaming letdowns and failures of all time. After players had been waiting for millenniums with the odd teaser trailer here and there, and the amazing promotion done by John Wick.
In 2077, what makes someone a criminal? Getting caught.
The game was expected to be a masterpiece, but it was far from it. Cyberpunk, like Avengers, was set up for failure due to the continuous delays resulting in haters ready to rip the game apart floor by floor, but it was so much more.
Fuck this shit!
It came with an army of bugs, from the odd flying NPC to corrupted save files, which is a strange strategy to give your game replayability. As well, it was terribly optimized and led to the death of many low-end PCs. The city felt flat and uninteresting, and the lack of AI for many of the generic NPCs made the whole city feel false, something that GTA 5 did so well 7 years prior. It's a shame the game died so quickly, along with its players, from the various house fires it caused from just looking at the menu screen. I'm sure the premise for the story was actually good, as development started before Christ, but the player base lost interest quick from the many cremations the game caused. In all seriousness, this game's demise was a major shock to the gaming industry, and maybe we could have waited a few more decades for some finishing details instead of receiving the letdown the game turned out to be.